the job offer came through. My brother was already packing for Italy. I didn't know they had already signed my name on something that would change my life forever. I got offered my dream job. I'm talking full-time, paid training, relocation expenses covered, and real upward mobility. I've been grinding for years to get here, night classes, internships, certifications, while working part-time to help my family pay bills. Last month, the offer finally came. HR called me while I was walking home from work, and I literally stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and just cried. It was that kind of moment, the kind I thought only happened to other people. I called my parents right after, told them everything. The excitement, the move, the salary, the start date. There was this silence on the other end. Then my mom said, "But who's going to take care of grandma?" I thought I misheard. I live with my parents and help care for my grandmother who has late-stage dementia. It's been a family effort, mostly me and my mom, but I've always done it willingly. Never complained. My brother Jason, 28M, lives across town. He helps, but only when it's convenient, which is basically every second Sunday if there's no football on. I paused, trying to figure out what she meant. I said, "Well, we'd have to make a plan. I can't turn down this job." That's when my dad got on the phone. Calm voice. Almost too calm. "Your brother just booked his trip. You can't leave now." Wait, trip? Turns out Jason was planning a 2-week vacation in Italy with his girlfriend. Non-refundable tickets, hotel book, everything already set. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend. And my parents, instead of being happy for me or offering to figure something out, were expecting me to stay behind, so my brother wouldn't have to cancel his fun little European escape. I laughed at first. I actually thought it was a joke. Then my mom said the thing that changed everything. "You're the reliable one. You know that." That line hit me like a punch in the chest. I tried to stay calm. I told them I had to think and hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I kept running the conversation over and over in my head. I'm not a selfish person. I get that family is important, but I've sacrificed so much already. I deferred college twice because we couldn't afford it. I gave up out-of-state offers to stay close. I worked part-time at a nursing home to help with grandma's meds when dad lost his job during COVID. And now that something good has finally happened to me, I'm supposed to throw it away because Jason wants to sip wine under the Tuscan sun? I spent the next day making calls. I asked my aunt if she could step in for a couple of weeks. She said she'd love to, but she had surgery scheduled. I reached out to my cousin busy with newborn twins. I even contacted a home health agency, found a short-term care solution that would cover the exact period my brother would be gone. I presented it to my parents like a business proposal. I had printouts, costs, availability. I thought I'd nailed it. My mom stared at the papers and said, "This isn't what grandma would want." I snapped. I told her grandma has no idea what day it is half the time, let alone who's changing her bed linen. I know that sounds cold, but I've been the one doing this. Every single night, the bedtime routines, the accidents, the medicine tracking, the verbal abuse when she gets confused and thinks I'm stealing from her. I've been doing it quietly, without asking for much. Now suddenly I'm selfish? Then came the kicker. Jason called me that night. He was furious, not because of the situation, because I ruined the vibe in the family group chat by starting drama. He actually said, "I'm finally doing something for myself and you're trying to guilt trip mom and dad into ruining it." I was speechless. I hadn't even messaged the group chat. Apparently, my mom had posted a picture of the flight confirmation and tagged us, and I hadn't responded. That was passive-aggressive. Jason told me he deserved this trip, that I didn't understand the pressure of a real job. He works remote tech support for a logistics company. I've seen him play video games mid-call. Then he said the one thing I will never forget. "It's not my fault you're the daughter. That's just how it is." It wasn't just what he said. It was the way he said it. Like it was common sense. Like I was built to give up things so others wouldn't have to. That was the first moment I realized I wasn't the helper. I was the sacrifice. That same night, I got a call from the HR manager of my new job. She was checking in to see if I had any questions before onboarding. I stared at the phone ringing. I let it go to voicemail, and I cried. Not because I didn't want the job, because I realized I might not take it. Not because I couldn't, but because I was being made to feel guilty for even wanting something for myself. That feeling doesn't go away easily. A few days passed after that call. My voicemail from HR sat unopened for 2 of them. I couldn't bring myself to listen. Every dinner after that was tense. Not loud, not fighting, but quiet in a way that made you feel like the walls were leaning in to hear. My dad barely looked at me. My mom acted like everything was fine, smiling too wide, asking me if I wanted to bake with her like old times, then turning cold when I said no. I'd never felt so isolated while still being in my own house. Then one night, my mom knocked on my bedroom door. "No, can I come in?" Just opened it, walked in, and sat on my bed like we were about to have a heart-to-heart. She held my baby photo album on her lap like a prop. I sat up and braced myself. She didn't even waste time. "Your father and I think you're being ungrateful." That was her opener. I asked her what she meant. She launched into this monologue like she'd been rehearsing it in the mirror, about how much they'd done for me, all the sacrifices they'd made keeping this family afloat, the late nights she stayed up when I had the flu in 3rd grade, the school lunches she packed, the way they let me stay home for college to save on tuition even though they wanted me to spread my wings. Then she said this: "Jason needs this vacation. He hasn't had a real break in 3 years. You're strong. You can wait." I was stunned. A vacation and a career move were being put on the same shelf, and somehow I was being cast as the villain for not offering myself up as tribute. I told her again about the short-term care solution. I told her I had it covered. That's when she raised her voice. "You're trying to buy your way out of being a daughter. I don't even know what that means, but I remember exactly how it felt. Like she'd taken the one thing I was proud of, being loyal, and used it as a weapon. A few days later, I cracked and listened to the HR voicemail. They were still excited to have me on board. Said I could delay my start date by 2 weeks if needed, but no longer. They'd need to move to the next candidate otherwise. That gave me a deadline, and my stomach started hurting like it used to when I had final exam. Jason, meanwhile, was living his best life, posting countdowns on his Instagram stories. 11 days to Rome, Italy with the girlfriend, some influencer-type girl named Lexi who I swear wears sunglasses indoors. He hadn't once acknowledged what I was giving up. Not even a thank you. Just one text. Hope things are chill now. Gotta focus on packing. Can you help with grandma this weekend? I have to get a haircut plus last-minute shopping. I didn't respond. That weekend, things escalated in a way I wasn't ready for. Grandma had one of her bad days. Got aggressive, tried to walk out the front door barefoot in just a robe. I caught her at the steps. She screamed at me for keeping her prisoner. Bit my arm when I tried to guide her back inside. I had a breakdown after I got her to bed. Locked myself in the bathroom and just cried on the floor, trying not to be loud enough for my parents to hear. It felt like this was becoming my identity. The caregiver, the sponge, the ghost that keeps the house running but doesn't have a face. I texted HR again and asked if I could talk Monday morning. I didn't say I was accepting or declining. Just said I'd give a final answer then. Sunday night, Jason came over. He was wearing his travel backpack like he wanted us all to know he was in vacation mode. He kissed Mom on the cheek, gave Dad a fist bump, and walked into the kitchen like he owned the place. He looked at me and said, "Hey, heard you finally came to your senses." I stared at him. He kept going. "This is what family does. We sacrifice. You'll get your shot eventually." Then he took an entire container of prepped meals I'd made for Grandma out of the fridge, saying, "This will save Lexi and me money at the airport. You're a lifesaver, sis." That's when I stood up. I told him to put the food back, that it was for Grandma. He laughed, thought I was joking. "You don't need to be so salty, it's just pasta." We got into it. Voices raised. Mom came in, told us to quiet down. Dad stayed on the couch, eyes glued to the TV. Jason got loud, said I was being weird lately and that he didn't have time for drama. I said I wasn't giving up my career so he could live out his Instagram highlight reel. He said, "You're making this a big deal. It's just one job. You'll find another." I asked him if he'd give up his trip so I could take the job. He looked at me like I'd asked him to cut off his arm. "That's not the same. I already paid. You're not losing money. Just perspective." That's when my dad finally spoke. "Enough. She's not going anywhere. We've already discussed this." He said it like it was settled, like I wasn't in the room, like I was a piece of furniture with an opinion. I left the kitchen. I didn't eat dinner. I stayed in my room and packed a single bag. Not my whole life, just enough to get out for the night. I went to my friend Tara's place. Tara's been my best friend since high school. She was the one who helped me study for my certification exam while her toddler screamed in the background. She's a single mom and still manages to make space for me whenever things get bad. I told her everything, all of it, the job, the guilt, the manipulation. She didn't tell me what to do, just listened, made tea, and said, "It's okay to choose yourself." That was the first time I'd heard those words in weeks, and it broke me. I stayed at Tara's place that whole week. I texted my mom and said I needed space to think. No response, no missed call, just silent. I kept expecting the guilt to flood back in, but it didn't. Being out of the house, even for a few days, was like stepping out of a fog. I started to remember what it felt like to think about my own life without someone else's voice in my ear. Monday morning, I got dressed, walked to the cafe across from Tara's apartment, and called HR. I accepted the job. They were thrilled. I got the onboarding paperwork that afternoon. Start date locked. Plane tickets booked for 3 weeks out. It was finally happening, but I knew I couldn't just disappear. I had to go back home just for a night to explain, drop off my key, say goodbye to Grandma, and make things as civil as I could. I owed at least that much, right? Tara offered to come with me. I said no. Big mistake. I went back the following Friday evening. My plan was simple. Go in, say my piece, leave. I walked into the house and found it quiet. Too quiet. My dad was in the living room, watching TV like nothing had happened. My mom was in the kitchen doing dishes. No yelling, no ambush, no guilt tripping. I told them I was taking the job and moving. My mom didn't even flinch. She just said, "When?" I told her. She nodded. That was it. No fight, no drama. I should have been relieved, but something felt off, like a stage set just a little too perfectly. Then Mom said, "Just make sure you say goodbye to Grandma before you go." I said I would and walked toward the guest bedroom where Grandma stayed. That's when I noticed it. Jason's hiking boots by the door. The ones he'd posted on Instagram from Rome 3 days ago. I stopped. My hand froze on the doorknob. I turned and asked, "Is Jason here?" My mom didn't answer. My dad stared at the TV. I opened the door, and there he was, Jason, sitting at Grandma's bedside, headphones in, scrolling through his phone. No Italy, no girlfriend, no vacation, just him, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He saw me inside. "Figures you'd come back now." I just stood there, trying to process what I was seeing. "What happened to your trip?" He muttered. "Didn't go." I blinked. "Why?" He looked at me, then looked away. "Lexi dumped me. Night before we were supposed to fly out." I didn't know what to say. I'd almost burned my life down trying to keep him on that vacation. He hadn't gone, and no one told me. I walked back to the kitchen, heart pounding. understanding. Why didn't anyone say anything? I asked. That's when my mom put down her sponge and turned. No warmth, no guilt, just because we still needed you to stay. I laughed out loud. Couldn't believe it. So you lied. My dad answered that time. You didn't need to know. It wouldn't have changed anything. Changed anything? That's when I realized I wasn't just the backup plan. I was the only plan. The lie wasn't about Italy. It was about control. They never planned to find another solution. They just needed to stall me long enough to make me miss the opportunity. Once I missed the job, they figured I'd settle down. I felt sick, betrayed in a way that didn't come with screaming or bruises, just a kind of rot, slow and silent, eating away at trust. But it wasn't over, because what my mom said next hit me like a truck. We knew Jason wasn't going, but we had another issue. She went quiet, like she was deciding whether to actually go there. Then she said it. We needed to make sure you were still living here when the lawyer came. What? That's when it all unraveled. Apparently, my parents had been contacted by a state caseworker a month ago. Something about long-term care liability, Medicare red tape, and a lawyer was reviewing grandma's assets and household dependents for something called a look-back period. They didn't want to tell me because, get this, having me listed as a resident caregiver made them eligible for tax exemptions and deferred costs. If I moved out, they'd lose that protection, and they couldn't risk it while the case was being reviewed. That's why they pushed so hard. Why they guilt me. Why they lied about Jason's trip. I wasn't just their daughter. I was a financial strategy. I didn't speak. I just grabbed my duffel bag and walked out. Jason didn't follow. Neither did they. The next morning, I got an email from my mom. No subject line, no greeting, just one sentence. You'll understand someday when you have children of your own. After walking out of that house, I stayed with Tara again. She didn't ask questions when I came in, just handed me a hoodie and let me sit on her couch in silence. I kept replaying my mom's last words in my head. You'll understand someday when you have children of your own. It sounded so final, like she'd done something awful and was already justifying it in advance. That kind of logic that betrayal's okay if it's wrapped in the name of love? That's not parenting. That's manipulation dressed up as martyrdom. But I wasn't ready for what came next. I wasn't going to talk to Jason again. I was done. But the next evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Lexi. I stared at it. Lexi? Jason's girlfriend? The one who dumped him before Italy? Why was she texting me? Then came the second message. I thought you should know. A lot of what Jason told you isn't true. And she sent a screenshot. It was from her Instagram DM. A full conversation with someone saved in her contacts as Mom Jason. My mother. The messages were from 2 weeks before I got the job offer. Here's what they said, word for word. We'll need you to convince him to delay Italy. We can't let her leave before the paperwork cleared. Tell him you're planning something serious. Engagement, maybe? If she thinks he's going, she won't abandon him. It's only for a few weeks. After that, she'll have missed the job anyway. Lexi's message to me came right after. I didn't know what they were doing at first. Then your mom told me to pretend we were still going to Italy even after I broke up with Jason. That's when I left for good. I felt like the room tilted. They didn't just lie to me. They orchestrated the lie. They involved Jason's girlfriend. They tried to manipulate both of us. And they were doing it weeks before the job offer even came through. Meaning, this wasn't about Jason's trip. This was about control. Everything, my mom's guilt trips, my dad's silence, Jason's temper tantrums, it was all part of a staged play to keep me in one role. Caregiver. I forwarded the screenshots to Tara. She called me immediately. Okay, we're done playing nice. We sat up that night until 2 a.m. writing everything out. Timelines, names, conversations, screenshots. Tara had a lawyer friend, Diana, who agreed to talk to me Monday morning. I wasn't suing anyone. I wasn't going nuclear. I just needed to protect myself because now I had reason to believe that if my parents were this manipulative, they might try something bigger, like claiming I'd abandoned grandma or breached some fake contract. When we met with Diana, she asked a question I hadn't thought of. Have you ever signed anything related to your grandmother's care? Even casually? I said no. Then she asked, did they ever list you as a financial dependent or caregiver on their taxes? That one I didn't know. She told me to check because if they did and I moved out, there could be consequences for them. Fraud level consequences. And if they forged anything, well, then we were in a whole different territory. I didn't have access to their files, but I knew someone who might. Jason. Say what you will about him, but he wasn't good at hiding things. And he definitely wasn't good with passwords. So I did something I'm not proud of. I guessed his email password. It was his old gamer tag, the one he used in high school. I'd watched him type it a million times growing up. It worked. Inside were emails from TurboTax, documents labeled 2023 taxes, and yep, a file called Care Agreement Household Declaration. I opened it. My name was on the form. As a living caregiver. Backdated. Signed. Except it wasn't my signature. I sent it to Diana. She called within minutes. That's document fraud. I asked her what that meant. It means they forged your signature on a legal declaration to reduce taxable liability. And if they submitted it, that's a federal issue. I sat there frozen. My parents didn't just manipulate me emotionally. They committed fraud in my name to profit off of my unpaid labor. And I never even knew. Diana told me to keep everything backed up. Don't confront them directly. Don't delete anything. And definitely don't go back to that house. The weirdest part? I didn't even feel angry in that moment. I felt nothing. Like my body was just conserving energy for the war I didn't ask for but was now smack in the middle of. Tara's lawyer, Diana, called it the calm before the storm. She was right. I filed a formal affidavit through her that I had not signed the caregiver declaration. She submitted it to the relevant department handling my grandmother's Medicare eligibility. I also gave her permission to send a warning to my parents through a legal intermediary, a formal cease and desist demanding they remove my name from any active or historical filings involving my grandmother's care, finances, or tax documentation. 2 days later, I got a text from my mom. How dare you turn on your family? I didn't respond. 5 hours later, Jason texted. You think this is going to help you? You just made things 100x worse. I still didn't respond, and that's when the real fire started. 3 days after the cease and desist was delivered, Jason showed up at Tara's apartment. Not a call, not a warning, just a knock, like this was some normal visit. I opened the door and froze. Jason looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, wrinkled hoodie, twitchy eyes. He held up his phone and said, "We need to talk." Tara, who'd been behind me, stepped in. "Nope, not here. You want to talk, you do it somewhere public, and you don't raise your voice." We ended up at a 24-hour diner down the street. Middle booth, 3 seats, no coffee yet. Jason sat across from me and started immediately. "They're losing everything." I didn't say anything. He kept going. "They got a call today. The review board flagged the application. It's paused. Might be denied entirely." He leaned in closer. "Do you understand what you did?" That's when I snapped. I told him exactly what I understood, that our parents forged my name on a federal document, that he let them lie to me about his trip, that he watched me give up everything to protect a lie they built together. He just stared. Then finally he said, "I didn't think it would go this far." That's when I saw it. The crack. He wasn't mad about the fraud. He was mad he got caught in it. And then, out of nowhere, he blurted this out. "You know why they kept you home, right?" I froze. He looked at me like he was about to drop a secret so ugly even he hated holding it. Then he leaned back and said, "It wasn't just the tax stuff." I didn't blink. He said, "Dad thought Grandma was going to die this year. You living there would let them claim dependent loss care and get the death exemption if it happened." I couldn't breathe for a second. He continued, "They thought if she passed while you were still listed, they'd qualify for payout retro, but only if you were listed as full-time resident caregiver." He said it casually, like it was a footnote, like it wasn't the most grotesque, twisted revelation I'd ever heard. They weren't just using me. They were waiting. I stood up, grabbed my coat, didn't say a word. Jason tried to follow me out, but Tara blocked him. I went straight back to Diana and gave her everything I had. Every text, every file, every detail. She was silent the whole time. Then she said, "They weren't trying to protect your grandmother. They were trying to profit off her dying." That was the moment it all clicked. I was never the daughter in this story. I was the insurance policy. The fallout started fast. The fraud review board escalated the case after my affidavit and digital evidence. Diana helped me submit a formal request to be removed from all family-linked filing. Then came the audit. And here's the twist I didn't expect. Jason flipped. After everything, he broke. Probably saw his own name getting dragged into something bigger than a lost vacation. Maybe he realized Mom and Dad would throw him under the bus just as fast if it came to that. He gave up everything. Emails, voice recordings, one where my mom said, "We just need her here until it's processed. After that, she can go." It was the final nail. And the last time I heard from my mom, she left a voicemail. 30 seconds, no tears, no apology, just one line. "I hope this was worth it." I didn't listen to it again. I forwarded it to Diana. Then I blocked the number. The audit moved fast after Jason turned everything over. My parents went silent. No messages, no retaliation, just gone. Diana told me the silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. They were talking to their own lawyer now, trying to figure out just how bad it could get. I thought that was it, that the worst was over. But 1 week before I moved for my new job, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, no signature, just a manila envelope. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them, mostly from an account I didn't recognize. But one thing stopped me cold. It was my name, mentioned again and again. At first, I didn't understand what I was reading. Then I saw the subject line on one of the forwarded threads. "Private room coverage, long-term placement, guardian proxy required." I looked closer. The emails were from over a year ago, back when my grandmother's condition first worsened, when I was still trying to juggle night classes and medication log. My parents had been shopping around for nursing homes, not just looking, applying. They'd even placed a deposit for a long-term care facility nearly 4 hours away. And here's the kicker. They listed me as the legal guardian. Forged documents, a fake power of attorney. And that's why they needed me to stay. It wasn't just taxes. It wasn't just dependency claims. They planned to move my grandmother out quietly and leave me holding the legal bag when the bills came in. Then claimed they were too old or unaware when it all blew up. I wasn't just their caregiver. I was their cover story. I called Diana immediately. She scanned the documents, verified a few of the emails with headers. Then she said something that stuck with me. "You were never their daughter. You were their exit plan." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went numb. Because finally, the mask was all the way off. They had never seen me as someone with a future. I was just their solution to a problem they didn't want to deal with themselves. I left that town 4 days later. New job, new apartment, no forwarding address. I changed my number, blocked them on everything. Even Jason. I thought maybe, just maybe, his betrayal came from being manipulated too. But the emails proved otherwise. He was in on it. Not just the vacation lie, not just the taxes, everything. There was a message from him to my dad that said, "She'll do it. She always does. Just act disappointed and she'll fold." They thought I would fold. They thought they knew me. But here's the part that still gives me chills. The last email in the pile? It was from my mom, sent to Jason. Subject line, "If she leaves. If she takes the job, we tell Grandma she ran away. Don't argue with her. Let her go. When the debt comes, we say she forged our names. We say she did it for the tax break. She's young. She'll settle. That was the plan. Gaslight me, then watch me collapse under pressure like I always had. I left, and I told the truth. I'm nobody's helper.